Namaskar. Today we will be discussing the unit Mimamsa Intrinsic Validity of Knowledge. This unit basically deals with Mimamsaka's intrinsic validity of knowledge. As the exponents of this system, both Kumarila and Prabhakara define the nature of valid knowledge. According to Kumarila, valid knowledge is an apprehension of an object which is free from defects and not contradicted by other knowledge. And Prabhakara holds that valid knowledge is a direct kind of apprehension of objects. The issues to be discussed in this unit: nature of valid knowledge, Mimamsaka's theory of Satah Pramandavada, theory of Parartha Pramandavada, and Satah Pramandavada. Now we discuss the nature of valid knowledge. The Mimamsa system has explained the nature of valid knowledge. Basically, the two exponents of the school, Prabhakara and Kumarila, have significantly and analytically discussed the nature of valid knowledge. According to Prabhakara, valid knowledge is defined as apprehension of an object. He, through this definition, clears that all apprehension is direct and immediate. Therefore, knowledge acquired through apprehension is considered valid. On the other hand, Kumarila maintains that valid knowledge is defined as apprehension of an object which is not produced by defective causes and which knowledge is free from contradiction. From the above discussion of the nature of valid knowledge, it can be explored that there are four important conditions of valid knowledge. Firstly, valid knowledge must be free from defective causes. Secondly, it must be free from contradiction. Thirdly, it must apprehend an object which is considered direct or immediate or which has not already been apprehended. Fourthly, it must apprehend an object. Now, we'll discuss another important issue of this system, Mimamsa theory of Satah Pramandavada. The theory of Satah Pramandavada is also known as self-validity or intrinsic validity of knowledge. According to system, all apprehension is intrinsically valid and valid by itself. It is not considered valid by any other knowledge. It also comes from the causes from which knowledge itself arises. Validity of knowledge comes from the essential nature of the causes of knowledge, not from the external causes. Prabhakara and Kumarila, the two exponents of the system, advocate the intrinsic validity of knowledge. Prabhakara mentions all cognitions as cognitions are valid. Their invalidity is due to their disagreement with the real nature of their objects. Kumarila also says the validity of knowledge consists in its apprehending an object. It is set aside by such discrepancies as its disagreement with the real nature of the object. The Mimamsakas support the validity of knowledge in case of its origin and ascertainment. The very conditions of self-validity of knowledge, which not only provide knowledge but also gives us the validity of knowledge in the context of belief in that validity. Validity of knowledge as well as belief in that validity does not require any external condition and verification in order to prove it. The theory of self-validity of knowledge advocates these two aspects. If the necessary conditions of knowledge, namely absence of defects in the instrument of knowledge and absence of contradiction, are present in case of acquisition of knowledge. Knowledge as well as the belief in the validity arises together. Therefore, it is clear that the validity of knowledge comes after the knowledge has arisen. Sankhya views that validity and invalidity of knowledge are self-evident. In contrast to these views, some schools of Buddhism opine that knowledge is intrinsically invalid and becomes valid by extrinsic conditions. Nyaya Vaisheshika system also in this respect points out that validity and invalidity of knowledge can be determined only through extrinsic conditions. On the other hand, the Mimamsa system holds that knowledge is intrinsically valid and invalidated by extrinsic conditions. The Mimamsakas refute the Sankhya view logically on the basis that the same knowledge cannot be both valid and invalid at the same time. If it is held that the same knowledge can be both invalid and valid afterwards, self-contradiction involves in case of knowledge, which we identify as valid and invalid at the same time. But if it is said that the same knowledge cannot be valid and invalid at the same time, it would maintain that valid knowledge discloses its validity and invalid knowledge divulges its validity. However, in the context of distinction between valid and invalid knowledge, it can be viewed that invalidity of knowledge cannot be identified without external conditions. The Buddhist viewpoint also has been criticized by pointing out that if knowledge is intrinsically invalid, it can never be valid afterwards. If intrinsically invalid knowledge is valid afterwards by help of other knowledge, which is considered to be valid to validate the first, it will be vitiated in a sense that the second knowledge will also be required to be valid by the help of other valid knowledge. And this continuous process of making knowledge valid leads to an infinitum. Now we will discuss Nyaya theory of Parartha Pramanyavada. According to Nyaya, the extrinsic validity of knowledge is called Parartha Pramanyavada. This theory holds that knowledge is neither valid nor invalid in itself. It is neutral. The validity or invalidity of knowledge comes only after the knowledge has arisen. The nature of knowledge deals with the correspondence to the object. The test of truth or the criteria of truth is nothing but the correspondence with its object. If knowledge leads to fruitful activity, it is valid. And if knowledge does not lead to fruitful activity, it becomes invalid. According to Nyaya, validity and invalidity are not intrinsically connected with knowledge. Validity is the result of the excellence or gunas in the causes of knowledge. On the other hand, invalidity arises due to the defect in the causes of knowledge. Knowledge is simply knowledge, and it becomes valid or invalid due to the extrinsic conditions. The Mimamsakas agree with the Naiyayikas in the context of the invalidity of knowledge, but hold that invalidity of knowledge arises on account of the extrinsic conditions. But the Mimamsakas disagree with the Naiyayikas in respect of the validity of knowledge. They hold that all knowledge is intrinsically valid and do not require any extrinsic conditions to validate itself, like the invalidity of knowledge. In contrast to this, Naiyayikas hold that knowledge is simply knowledge. It is neutral. The validity or invalidity of knowledge does not come immediately, and it comes afterwards. Therefore, it depends on extrinsic conditions. In response, the Mimamsakas point out that knowledge is not neutral. Rather, it becomes either valid or invalid. Therefore, the proposition or statement, knowledge is neutral, upholded by Nyaya, is not accepted by Mimamsakas. According to the latter, there is no possibility of neutral knowledge. The Mimamsakas also point out that nothing can determine knowledge to be valid if knowledge is not self-valid. Again, the presence of gunas in the causes of knowledge can make knowledge either valid, or the presence of defects in the causes of knowledge can make knowledge invalid, which is not accepted by the Mimamsakas. The Mimamsakas also viewed that if knowledge requires external conditions to make knowledge valid, the second knowledge, which is considered to be valid, knowledge itself as a condition to validate the first, would require other or a third type of knowledge to validate the second one before it can validate the first. Therefore, the process of validity of knowledge goes on ad infinitum. Ad infinitum. If knowledge is not considered self-valid or intrinsically valid. Hence, all knowledge must be self-valid. The so-called external or extrinsic conditions formulated by Nyaya, like the excellence or correspondence or fruitful activity, cannot be considered as external or mere conditions. Rather, the terms like excellence, correspondence, and fruitful activity are considered essential characteristics of valid knowledge. These characteristics are essentially and intimately connected with the causes which produce knowledge. Therefore, they are neither external conditions nor mere conditions, nor taste of validity of knowledge. They are, in a sense, the essential and necessary causes of valid knowledge. Valid knowledge will emerge only in the presence of these essential features. Now we'll discuss Parartha Pramannavada and Satah Pramannavada, a comparison. Now we'll compare both the issues or both the concepts, that is Parartha Pramannavada and Satah Pramannavada. The Naya theory of Parartha Pramannavada and the Mimamsa theory of Satah Pramanna can be compared to the theory of correspondence and to the theory of coherence respectively in Western logic. The Western realism holds that the nature and the taste of truth is correspondence with external reality. On the other hand, the Western idealism holds that the nature and the taste of truth is coherence or self-consistency with a system. According to the correspondence theory of truth, a proposition or statement is true when it corresponds to the external object or reality. Therefore, correspondence theory holds that truth is a one-to-one external relation between the proposition or statement and the object or reality. Thus, this theory holds that our knowledge must correspond to the external object fully in order to be true knowledge. This theory has been criticized on the ground that our knowledge or truth cannot be purely external, or truth cannot be found out only through correspondence with external objects. As for instance, we perceive that earth revolves around the sun. But is it true knowledge? In the ordinary sense, it is true because we perceive it. But if we explore it critically, it is false. That is why the test of correspondence or external relation cannot determine the truth or falsity of a proposition or statement in all cases of knowledge. Again, if the terms related in a proposition or a statement are conceived as ultimately simple and independent, therefore there can be no relation between them. Thus, the coherence theory holds that the relation inheres only in a consistent whole, and a mere combination of a simple or independent entities cannot constitute a real whole. The coherence theory is supported by the idealists who hold that reality is a concrete whole, which is also known as an identity in difference. It is also known as self-consistent and coherent whole. According to coherence theory, truth or knowledge is a systematic coherence, which is considered a significant characteristic of a whole. Thus, according to the coherence theory of truth, coherence or self-consistency is nature of valid knowledge. This theory also has been criticized on the ground that no truth is completely true because the coherence and the test of truth fail to cohere the concrete whole or reality. Thus, it admits the degrees of truth because coherence is the test of truth fails to represent or picture the absolute truth in complete sense. Again, the concept of truth or knowledge cannot be accepted in respect of degree, which has been opined by the coherence theory of truth. The Neo system, like Western realism, advocates the correspondence with external reality as the nature of valid knowledge. But the Neo system does not accept the correspondence with external reality and the taste or criterion of truth. In contrast to this, the Western realism admits the correspondence with external reality or one-to-one relation as the taste of the Neo system, in lieu of the term correspondence with the external reality, prefers the term fruitful activity or practical efficiency in respect of the taste of truth. Therefore, Neo system in this context accept pragmatism in order to refute direct taste or naive realism. The Mimamsa system also advocates the taste of fruitful activity or practical efficiency in order to be free from contradiction. Although the Mimamsa system advocates the coherence theory of truth, yet there are differences between the Mimamsa's concept of coherence theory and the idealist theory of coherence theory. Like the Neo system, the Mimamsa system also admits that knowledge must refer to the external and independent object. Latter one also advocates that valid knowledge must represent the external object in real sense, and correspondence with the external object is considered the nature of valid knowledge. The Mimamsa system also agrees with the Nio's statement that invalidity of knowledge is due to the external conditions and clearly views that all knowledge is intrinsically valid. But it does not advocate the test of truth. Rather, it holds that coherence or self-consistency is the nature of valid knowledge. Besides, not like coherence theory, it views that reality is not considered a concrete whole, an identity difference. Reality is considered a juxtaposition of the distinct independent reality by accepting freedom from external conditions, correspondence with the external object, and knowledge is intrinsically valid or self-valid. The Mimamsa system refutes the charges against the coherence theory. Now we'll discuss some basic issues or the highlighting points discussed in this unit, that is Mimamsa's intrinsic validity of knowledge. Prabhakara and Kumarila, the two exponents of the Mimamsa system, have significantly and analytically discussed the nature of valid knowledge. According to Prabhakara, valid knowledge is defined as apprehension of an object. He, through this definition, clears that all apprehension is direct and immediate. Therefore, knowledge acquired through apprehension is considered valid. The four important conditions of valid knowledge are: firstly, valid knowledge must be free from defective causes. Secondly, it must be free from contradiction. Thirdly, it must apprehend an object which is considered as direct or immediate, or which has not already been apprehended. Fourthly, it must apprehend an object. The Mimamsa theory of Swatah Pramanyavada is also known as self-validity or intrinsic validity of knowledge. The Mimamsa system holds that all apprehension is intrinsically valid and valid by itself. It is not considered valid by any other knowledge. It also comes from the causes from which knowledge itself arises. Validity of knowledge comes from the essential nature of the causes of knowledge, not from the external causes. Prabhakara and Kumarila, two exponents of the Mimamsa system, advocate the intrinsic validity of knowledge. According to Sankhya system, validity and invalidity of knowledge are self-evident. In contrast to these views, some schools of Buddhism opine that knowledge is intrinsically invalid and becomes valid by extrinsic conditions. The Nyaya Vaisheshika system also in this respect points out that validity and invalidity of knowledge can be determined only through extrinsic conditions. On the other hand, the Mimamsa system holds that knowledge is intrinsically valid and invalidated by extrinsic conditions. The Mimamsakas refute the Sankhya view logically on the basis that the same knowledge cannot be both valid and invalid at the same time. If it is held that the same knowledge can be both invalid and valid afterwards, self-contradiction involves in the case of knowledge. According to Nyaya system, the extrinsic validity of knowledge is called Parartha Pramanyavada. This theory holds that knowledge is neither valid nor invalid in itself, it is neutral. The validity or invalidity of knowledge comes only after the knowledge has arrived. The nature of knowledge deals with the correspondence to the object which we identify as valid and invalid at the same time. Nyaya system emphatically asserts that validity and invalidity are not intrinsically connected with knowledge. Validity is the result of the excellence or gunas in the causes of knowledge, and invalidity arises due to the defect in the causes of knowledge. Knowledge is simply knowledge, and it becomes valid or invalid due to the extrinsic conditions. So these are the highlighting points of this unit. In order to understand this unit in a comprehensive manner, some reference books are to be very important. These books are S.C. Chatterjee and D.M. Dutta's book, An Introduction to Indian Philosophy, M. Hirayana's book, Outlines of Indian Philosophy, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan's book, Indian Philosophy, Volume 2, and C.D. Sharma's book, A Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy, is to be important. Thank you.